Hello, everybody, and welcome to our PDA Town Hall for this date of January 25th, I believe. Yes, it is, 2026. And as I speak to you, the United States of America is in the throes of a domestic crisis, unlike anything that we've experienced even through the first Trump administration. I mean, it's as if the January 6th riots had spread around the country. It almost feels like that maybe what the analog would have been like. But we have a situation where the executive branch of the federal government is acting in ways that it's always been my understanding that what they're doing is so outside the Constitution that the protection of the domestic population from the imposition of force by the federal government is just one of the absolute bedrocks of the sort of American constitutional social contract. And what we're seeing in Minnesota is not only uh, an absolute transgression of that and breaking and shattering of that, the defense of the actions of ICE and the Department and the border agents, whatever branch of the groups that they brought up there, from the members, the key and relevant members of the administration, is again unlike anything that we've heard. And I know that there are people on the left who oftentimes want to say, well, there were always these horrible elements of American society, and Trump isn't that much worse. I really think that I always think there's something constitutionally worse just when they declare that what they're doing is okay. So that's what happened during Bush and Cheney with torture. Of course, the USA was probably involved in torturing people in the years before, through the Vietnam War era, the Central American era, et cetera. But then, um, uh, to say that we do this and we're supporting it is also itself constitutionally different. But then on top of that, that's not just their words that are so outlandish, it is the behavior. And what we witnessed yesterday, and I remind people only a day after a beautifully organized general strike in Minneapolis, in the Twin Cities, by activists there, all taking place in freezing cold with mass participation, beautifully nonviolent, very much in the spirit of the kind of town hall we had with Kent Wong around nonviolent civil disobedience. The very fabric of that was part and parcel of what the people in the Twin Cities experienced from the activists who were opposing the presence of ICE in their communities. And then this happened yesterday morning. And it does seem, as we are right now, we're at a point where some of the political uh, response to this around the country seems to have shifted. And it's something that we need to, as PDA, lean into and support that shift. Just since the killing of Alex Preddy, Democratic leadership has signaled that they are going to not support over the next, what is it, the next week, the funding of Homeland Security in as it comes up in the bill that would need to be passed to keep the government open. This was something that Senator Chris Murphy in Connecticut and the Congressional Progressive Caucus in the House had called for, and heretofore, both Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer had said, no, we're not going to do this. And whatever their consultants are telling them, or whatever they think the better political messaging before Alex Preddy's death, that was the position of Democratic leadership. And that was after the killing of Renee Good. But after yesterday's actions, Schumer has signaled that they will support the position that Chris Murphy had put forward and that of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Of course, we at PDA will be supporting that wholeheartedly. And I'll have opportunity to mention a few other things in the course of today's town hall. We're going to have, of course, as our featured guest, um, someone who's been very close to PDA, throughout the time of his political prominence and PDA's existence, which is Representative Jesus Chuy Garcia from Chicago is going to be joining us. And we're going to be very interested to hear his thoughts on this moment. And then I also want to actually return to a subject he brought up at our Progressive Central last year that I think is also relevant as he spoke about a possible reframing of immigration and also foreign relations with Latin America that I think would be a brilliant thing for PDA to maybe work with Rep. Garcia to develop so that we can sort of present it as Democratic Party policy that should be adopted by the party. And just to see what he has to say about that. He gave a very powerful speech at Progressive Central in 2024. Then we're going to be joined by, of course, Hartzell Gray, who is he's our champion. We hope to be his champions, and he's running, of course, in Missouri's fourth. We're going to get an update on his race later on in the first hour, and then we're going to be joined by an elected official from the state of Minnesota, and I'll share that person's name with you in a second. Sorry, I don't have it in front of me right now, but we're getting an update about everything going on in Minnesota, how things look from there right now. And then, of course, we'll open up to questions, and that will be our town hall for this week. By the way, for people, I should say, I'm going to a conference in New Orleans tomorrow morning for 3 days on artificial intelligence, and I will report back to everybody on this town hall about that conference next week. There's a lot of activism going around about advocating for Medicare for all that's going on, and we'll talk about that next week too. But for now, let's go to Mike Fox with our PDA to-dos for this week, and then over to Donna Smith with her thoughts for the week. Mike Fox, take it away.
Thank you, Alan. Can you hear me?
I can indeed.
Thank you, sir. And for those who do not know, a lot of folks here are family members already who know this. My apologies for the mask. No, I'm not ICE. It's a long story. I'm the primary caregiver for an 85-year-old mother who refuses to get vaccinated, doctor's orders, blah, blah, blah. Bottom line, thank you all for being here, and I apologize for this being a bit off-putting. To-do number one, as always, gang, and arguably, given the week we have just had, it's all the more important, and that is revel in the fact that you're surrounded by people who get it here every Sunday, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific. We gather as a community, show solidarity with each other in these difficult times, and reinforce to each other that while there is no question, this is the biggest challenge we've had as a country from a foundation of democracy standpoint that we've ever seen in my lifetime. We can overcome this, but the only way we overcome it is by staying positive and showing solidarity with each other, okay? So let's all keep this a loving space and make the commitment to each other that we leave this call feeling better and ready to get to work, because it's needed. All right. So with the work in mind, to-do number two is take notes, because we got a boatload of actions we're going to be talking about throughout this call, including on the back end when we're in family time. The recording gets stopped, and then we really take a deep dive into specifically what it is we need to do over the upcoming week. Okay. So stick around with us for that and have your notepad ready. From a time and treasure standpoint, the quick hits are number one, phone bank, phone bank, phone bank, phone bank, phone bank. While all this is going on, we also have, not only do we have to get our people organized and getting to mass rallies, et cetera, and we do that by hitting them up on the phone. Likewise, there are elections going on right now. Right now, there's a special election in New Jersey's 11th, just in a week and a half. So we have got to be talking to voters and likewise getting into the streets at the same time. And we can't do that with just the same number of people doing the work, gang. Candidly. So phone bankers, we've got a lot of them on the call here. Type in the chat, identify that you're a phone banker, invite people to come on board. That's at pdamerica.org/volunteer. We have more calls to make than we got bodies right now, so let's make sure we bring in at least 20 new people from this call, okay? pdamerica.org/volunteer. And the other to do, we're going to talk about closer to the back end here, about specifically how you can get involved in ICE resistance in your area. Okay. So those are the two big to-dos here of the upcoming week from a time standpoint. Finally, treasure standpoint. We take great pride here at PDA in the fact that the vast majority of our work gets done by volunteer labor. It's just conceptually, spiritually right? And that's a beautiful thing. However, we got to keep the lights on. And we likewise we got to keep expanding. In a perfect world, we would be able to provide some stipends for some very energetic ground people across the country, help us organize locally, et cetera, et cetera. So with that in mind, solidarity, once again, if you can just toss in $1, make it happen. If you can do more, please do. And we'll be back on where we're at on our goal on that here at the top of the hour. Okay, thank you, and back to you, Alan.
Thank you so much, Mike. And I want to just piggyback on that to say, yes, please sign up to make phone calls. Ana Lilia Mejia has a real shot at winning in New Jersey 11th. It'll be a great progressive victory at the top of the primary season. And that send a very powerful message across the country. So sign up to be a PDA phone banker, and it's going to be a joy to support Ana Lilia. She's got real momentum going in that district, is my understanding, and a real shot at winning the primary. If she wins the primary, she's going to win the seat for Congress. It's a Democratic district. And that is on February 5th, before all the other primaries. It's a special election because of Mikey Sherrill winning the governorship. I do want to apologize to Kevin Chavez. He is going to be our guest in the second hour. I did not have his name handy. He is actually running for a position as Hennepin County Commissioner. Hennepin County is the county in which Minneapolis is in. So that is Kevin Chavez will be joining us from the county that is the front lines of this fight against ICE to get an update and just hear his thoughts on what's going on there. And now over to Donna Smith, and then I'll be introducing Chuy Garcia. Take it away, Donna.
Thank you so much, Alan, and thanks to everybody who's on this call and taking time today to be a concerned and dedicated American. And I think all of us feel like we wish we could be in Minnesota and supporting the people who are there. If we're not there, and to those of you who are, we stand with you. Certainly all of us in PDA stand with you, and we will do what we can from a distance to help you. I was moved to think about how many of our recent traumas have been in Minnesota. James Floyd and all of it, the Renee Good, and now this ICU nurse. How can we do this again? How can we do this again, Minnesota? Right? I think I'm one of those people who has a belief in some plan, and that that arc of justice, that bending, the moral arc of justice bending in history. And it's I don't find the right words right now to comfort people in Minnesota, but wow, are we all proud of you, the way you're standing up, the way you're speaking up. It's moving, it's powerful, and it's what America is supposed to be all about, at least in my mind. So I went and looked up the words of the late Paul Wellstone, a senator from Minnesota, who spoke so brilliantly. He died in a plane crash in 2002. And he talked about citizen organizing and power. And what Wellstone believed more than anything, that grassroots organizing to create change was one of the 3 pillars of a democracy. But we need a good public policy, grassroots organizing, and electoral politics. Here at PDA, I think we are blessed to work on all 3 of those areas. And each of us has something that speaks to us that says, this is what we can do. If you're like me, I'm in my 70s now. My health is failing a bit right at the moment. I'm going to admit it to everybody. I can't do some of those physical things in the streets. I would pose more of a deterrent to the activities than I would a help right now. I want to be there so desperately. I want to be there with my brothers and sisters in Minnesota and with all my brothers and sisters here in Colorado who are standing up to this mess. I can't be, but what I can do is be on those phones. I can help organize. I can go to my local caucuses. I can do the things I can do locally. So please, if you're a boomer like me, or if your health you just can't do it, don't make yourself a part of a problem out in the streets when we also need you here on the phones and on social media. That's what my feeling is. If that's what Wellstone's talking about, those three pillars, we don't have real good public policy going on. And with that, I want to say one other thing before I say a little bit about Chuy. I also wanted to say that we here at PDA have a long history together, and I'm going to be putting together some of the details of that. Those of you who've been with us a long time, I've said it a couple times now, but I'm going to be contacting people like Paul and Laura Stokes and the Freedmans in Massachusetts. And I certainly want to talk to a lot of folks in California who have been very important to PDA. I want pictures, I want video, I want stories, all of it. I want all of it in whatever form you've got it, because I want to put it together. It would be my great honor and my great joy to put together a history of an organization that brought Bernie Sanders to the run for the presidency in 2016 and also changed the course of history and will continue to do so. We stand with our brothers and sisters and all others. So with that, the first time I met and introduced Chuy Garcia was in Chicago at the People's Summit in Chicago before he was even elected. I had been blessed enough to work for the California Nurses and National Nurses United. And when first thing I thought about with Minnesota was the Minnesota Nurses Association. And that, oh God, no, it was a nurse. It was a nurse. And I know what nurses are all about. And it was the very first thing I thought about. But Chuy Garcia, even at that time, I was born and raised just northwest of Chicago. My parents were, my dad was born in Chicago. So I'm a child of that area, and Chuy felt to me like the right fit in Chicago. When I first heard that he was retiring, my heart just broke a little bit as a Chicagoan. But I also understand. I get it. I understand. And I really applaud the fact that what it looks like is he's doing what I'm pitching for. Let's replace ourselves, boomers. Let's replace ourselves with bright ideas and people who really will fight for the things that the people in Minnesota need us to fight for right now, and that everybody in this country needs to fight for. So back to you, Alan, so you can intro Chuy. But please, if you've got things about PDA, pictures, stories, reels, anything, Donna at pdamerica.org. Thanks so much, Alan.
And even before introducing Chuy Garcia, I do want to give a shout out to one of our other close allies in Congress, Maxwell Alejandro Frost. If you have not seen the news story, Maxwell Frost was accosted last night with a racist attack at the Sundance Film Festival, and he has said that he is okay. Again, it fits with this, unfortunately, the horrible wave of just overt racism that is spreading through the country. Speared on by the Trump administration. So, as always, for us, solidarity with Maxwell Alejandro Frost. And as I introduce Chuy Garcia, Representative Garcia, who I believe is with us now, is that correct, folks?
Yeah, Alan, just a button pushing challenge here. We have two Manuel Diaz's, and I think one of those is his colleague, and I think one of those is the good congressman. So
Indeed, in fact, we can see the good congressman now.
Oh,
And
okay, good.
yeah, and I mean, what to say about Chuy Garcia? In fact, let me just do this. There's a very eloquent thing that we put out in our email that could work as an intro. But just to say, this is just one of the great progressive organizers in contemporary American politics and politicians. He's held, of course, a number of seats in the state Senate and the Cook County Board, and very famously, he challenged Rahm Emanuel and forced a runoff in an election for mayor, which was a groundbreaking move against a deeply entrenched, highly conservative and reactionary Democratic mayor in Chicago. And he then entered the U.S. House of Representatives in the 2018 elections and seated, therefore, in January 2019. As Donna made reference, he has announced that he will be stepping down from Congress after this year. But, out here in Los Angeles, when there were the huge demonstrations during the Sensenbrenner era, what many people out here didn't know and elsewhere around the country is that these demonstrations started in Chicago. And for the Mexican American community in Chicago, coming of age politically was Chuy Garcia coming to the fore politically. And he's just such an unwavering champion of working people in the country and around the world. And it's just an honor again to have you here. Welcome, Representative Garcia.
Thank you so much, Alan and Deb, and of course the entire PDA family. A shout out to Ana Lilia and all her people out on the
Yeah.
east side of the nation,
Yeah.
pulling for you. It's right around the corner. And of course, to Maxwell Frost, brother Frost, a member of the Progressive Caucus, and of course the Hispanic Caucus as well. And he is a ray of sunshine in the state of Florida, without a doubt, in the future of our movement and good causes. So it's always good to be with you, people committed to truth and justice. And yes, Minnesota is on our minds and in our hearts. I have a son and daughter-in-law and two grandchildren there, so we're in close communication. I was there last weekend with a delegation of 26 members of Congress, and of course, the tragic events and the outraging events that have developed this week. But this conversation, of course, is happening at a very heavy moment, one that demands clarity, of course, and plenty of courage. And the people of Minnesota are demonstrating that. Yesterday, Alex Pratt, 37-year-old nurse, was, of course, gunned down by federal agents in Minnesota. This was not an isolated incident. It was at least the second fatal shooting by federal immigration agents in Minneapolis in recent weeks, following the killing, of course, of Renee Good, who was shot in the face and left to die. During these same operations, ICE agents kidnapped a 5-year-old child, Liam Ramos, and attempted to use him as leverage to capture others. Shameful. That child was taken across the country. We believe he's in a detention facility in Texas. No children belong in places like that. In another aggressive operation in Minnesota, of course, a man was shot in the leg. Here in Chicago, we know this pattern all too well. Silverio Villegas Gonzalez was killed in his car after dropping off his two children at school. Just minutes from my home, near my district office, Marimar Martinez, a teacher's assistant, was shot 5 times. She survived, but faced an onslaught of false federal charges and was labeled a domestic terrorist, a teacher's assistant at a Montessori school. I named these cases, and there are many more, not to shock, but because refusing to name violence is how it becomes policy. When caregivers are killed, when migrants are shot, and children are taken, that is not enforcement, it's an abuse of power. And we cannot look away, and we cannot accept violent federal enforcement as routine governance. Just a quick refresh, as many of you know, so I won't have to retell my whole story. I came here in 1965, 60 years ago, from Mexico, raised on Chicago's Southwest Side in a union household. I've devoted my entire life to organizing, to legislating and governing alongside immigrant and working class communities. I live in the barrio. I help build durable coalitions across communities of color, especially because division weakens us. Immigration has never been abstract. It's who I represent, it's who I answer to. And of course, this moment makes that history all the more urgent. My grandson, whom my wife and I recently adopted, you may have heard, 8 years old, is anxious whenever we go outside into the car because he thinks that ICE is lurking around, ready to attack us. I'm speaking to you today in my final term in Congress, not to look back, but to make sure that our work continues to matter as it has. The stakes are undeniable. Of course, my focus is the same as it's always been. But this moment, it's sharper, delivering real, lasting outcomes for working families and immigrants, not symbolic wins, making sure that progress is not temporary, symbolic, or easily undone. That's why you need legislation. And we need to center dignity, due process, and stability over the chaos, holding our own party and any administration accountable to our values, using every remaining moment in this seat to push for reforms that endure, especially for communities that have waited decades for real change. There may be a situation in the coming week of a shutdown. Another shutdown deadline is approaching. Some choreography, artificial urgency, hostage taking, take it or leave it deals. We've seen them all. But this time, the leverage is being used to expand a federal enforcement apparatus that's actively harming people. Federal workers, TSA staff, disaster relief, veterans, senior families, all being used as cover to essentially infinitely fund a lawless operation, as we've seen. This is a budgetary strategy to lock in violence before accountability can catch up. And that's where we are today. But what's actually in this DHS bill that I voted against, that the Progressive Caucus whipped against, that all of our members proudly voted against, and that only a handful of Democrats voted for, massive new funding for ICE and Border Patrol, oversight stripped down to nothing, civil rights protections weakened, independent oversight eliminated, families left without pathways to reunification, watchdogs fired, enforcement unleashed. This is not border security. It's a blank check to continue the terror. Immigration is once again being used as a bargaining issue. The actual effect is expanded detention, raids, and interior operations, as we've seen in Minnesota. Make the dollar circulate because people are profiting from this. 70,000 people are being held in detention centers, many of them in private detention centers across the country. Accountability requirements are being optional. Oversight is reduced or delayed. These outcomes were not unforeseen. They were known in advance. When Congress increases enforcement funding, when it weakens oversight and civil rights protections, the risk of harm increases. That is not an accident, it's a policy choice. Democrats are under pressure on immigration, and that is a good thing. And unfortunately, it took these martyrs in Minneapolis. It took other tremendous violence. And of course, the Gestapo-like tactics of ICE and Customs and Border Patrol and other federalized agents. And too many, of course, in our ranks are choosing the wrong response. But we're gaining momentum and more are seeing the injustice and the urgency. So we're trying to sound, many try to sound tougher, but funding enforcement first approaches, but that is sounding hollow and empty and people aren't buying it. That's not pragmatism and it's not a strategy. It's a real surrender and it doesn't work. You cannot negotiate with this administration. In case anyone had any doubts, leadership has described this bill as a funding reduction. In practice, it isn't. It maintains increased detention funding using a different baseline for comparison. At the same time, oversight and civil rights functions are reduced, the results are expanded, enforcement authority with fewer checks. The bottom line is this. Communities are tired of being lied to. They're tired of border deals with no real solutions, tired of reform that always comes after more enforcement. They're tired of being told to wait while the machinery grows, and they are right to be angry. It is not about politics as usual. This is about whether Congress will keep financing a system that's lost its moral and legal compass, and whether we're willing to say clearly, enough, ya basta. This year marks the 40 years, 4 decades, since immigration reform happened when Ronald Reagan was president. In that time, enforcement expanded, due process shrank, and fear became policy. Congress funded force and delayed solutions over and over again. This DHS fight isn't new. And this is also the result of decades of US policy in Central and South America, trade policy, sanctions against Cuba and Venezuela and other countries, militarization, climate neglect. All of it displaces people. All of it treated as someone else's problem. I've long argued that migration cannot be solved at the border. It has to be addressed across the Western Hemisphere in coordination with progressive and other governments with shared responsibility, not punishment. We're debating enforcement funding after people have been killed. Minneapolis didn't expose a bad tactic, it exposed a broken strategy. You cannot keep funding while refusing to fix a system. We need a pathway to legalization. We need real, broad, and permanent protection for dreamers, for TPS holders, for long term undocumented families, asylum rooted in due process, not deterrence. Detention should not be a lucrative business model. Worker protections, front and center, because that fuels exploitation, because fear fuels exploitation. So there are the only way that enforcement stops being the default responses. So this week, the ball will be in our court, in the Senate. Some good signs from Senate Democrats who have been moved by the developments in Minnesota, and we hope that they will hold the line. And just to be clear, let me sum up what the Progressive Caucus believes can happen in the Senate next week. We believe that ICE funding without reforms is bad, and that we have the leverage to ensure, at the very least, the following: that we must negotiate and negotiate really hard. At least 5 demands must be non negotiable. One, that ICE and CBP leave Minneapolis and stop terrorizing American cities. 2, that we get a full independent investigation into the killings. 3, no more detaining and deporting U.S. citizens. The masks come off. Okay? The masks come off. No other law enforcement anywhere in the country uses masks. They got to come off. What are they hiding? Where is the cowardice? And that the mass arrest quotas and warrantless arrests must cease as well. These are the concrete things that we believe can be achieved. And of course, we will be holding Chuck Schumer and other Democrats to account, because this is not business as usual. This is a great threat. No one in the country, no city, no town will be safe from the Gestapo tactics of the Department of Homeland Security, ICE, and Customs and Border Patrol, and other federalized agents. That's why so much is on the line. And we must ensure that the deaths of 2 loved ones in the city in Minneapolis are not in vain, and that we uphold their lives and their values and their courage in the coming days, all for the restoration of real democracy and justice in our country. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was powerful and brilliant, and provides us with great guidance for the next week and going forward, really, until this crisis is over and we've restored sanity and constitutional order to the United States of America. I was very, very impressed, and I don't know if you'll remember it, by the speech that you gave at Progressive Central in Chicago at 2024. And you had just recently returned from a PanAmerican conference, I believe, in Bogota. And some of the themes you just outlined in terms of an immigration policy that is coordinated with Central American and all of Latin America, actually Caribbean governments, Central America, Mexico, South America governments is really what is called for to have a mature immigration policy in the United States. And PDA obviously has a quite a esteemed history of foregrounding certain issues and demanding the Democratic Party and the Progressive Caucus endorse them. And I'd love to work with your office in a sense, sort of outlining this and then putting it forward as an immigration policy that progressives can support. So I'll be in touch with you about that. But I was so impressed with you back at the Progressive Central, and you basically just returned to those themes again. And I think they are absolutely spot on. And I think it is what progressives can rally around as an immigration policy for the United States. So thank you.
And Alan, just want you to know that last Friday, while I was in Minneapolis with 25 of my colleagues, we had a phone call with members of parliaments and legislative bodies in Canada, in South America, in Central America, and in Mexico as well. The PanAmerican Congress continues to move forward and to push that agenda of addressing migration on a hemispheric basis and not once people are under the gun, as we've seen in Minneapolis and other cities.
And of course, it resonates extra loud now, not only because of the terror in the United States, but the Trump policy towards the Western Hemisphere of intervention and oppression and the Monroe Doctrine nonsense that he's going on about. So thank you so much. That is so brilliantly eloquent. I know you have to go in a little while, but I'm going to call on Donna maybe to see if she has a follow-up thought for you. And
the only thing I can think of, Congressman, I'm so glad that Chicago has had you for all these years representing them in Congress. Oh, it's wonderful. And, to quote another Chicagoan who did a fierce amount of change, talk about the fierce urgency of now, right?
Yes.
To move forward. We have to. When I hear you speak, this cannot be our country. Not only can it not be our Chicago, it cannot be our Illinois, cannot be our Minnesota, it cannot be our country. And thank you so much for your eloquence today and for being here.
Thank you, Donna. It's great to see and to hear you. You hang in there with your fight. I've got some health issues too, and the family as well. But I'm not stepping away from the fight. I'm going to be doing it because I've been doing it all of my life. I'll just be doing it from Chicago and, of course, maintaining and nurturing all of the national networks and relationships that we have, because that's who we are. And that's what we intend to pass down to our grandchildren.
Awesome. And your neighborhood was the first place I ever tasted tamales. Oh.
We do have the best, if I can boast a little bit, yes.
And of course,
I died and went to heaven.
You have obviously were very much a strong ally of the Washington administration, and it was my understanding from Deb that you, before what transpired this weekend, you were wanted to share some thoughts about organizing in working class communities of color and the importance of that for progressive Democrats of America and progressives all around the country to think about to foreground and to highlight.
I'm very fortunate to have been raised in Chicago with the inspiration and legacies of several organizing traditions here. Labor, of course, the fight for the 8-hour day took place in Chicago, 1886. Saul Alinsky did a lot of organizing here in Chicago. The civil rights movement made its mark on Chicago. Dr. King lived for a while just a few blocks from my home. And of course, we've seen the inspiration and the impact of organizing along faith-based and based communities that have come from Latin America. The liberation theology practices as well that have come here from all over Latin America have been very important strains in bringing people to action for social and economic justice as well. And those are the things that have inspired me. They are the things that I have shared with new young people that we've elected to city council, to the state legislature, both houses, to countywide offices, and of course to Congress, and colleagues like Delia Ramirez, who is now in her second term in the U.S. Congress. So we're very fortunate to have been raised, either born or raised in Chicago, and to have been exposed to all of those things, fighting against racism, fighting against poverty, and of course against militarism as well. And as we know, those are three of the most important pillars that we learn to struggle from Dr. Martin Luther King as we celebrate his birthday and his week of struggle and legacy as well.
And we can certainly hope that the first Pope from the United States of America follows in the tradition of liberation theology.
Oh yes, yes, we're delighted in Chicago to have Pope Leo. He took that name following a legacy in the papacy, and of course, it's kind of personal to me because the Pope taught at the high school that I graduated from, a
Oh, wow.
Catholic high school. I wasn't there at that time, but I still brag about it. We love the Pope, and we are heartened by many of the positions that he has taken against war, against xenophobia, against anti-immigrant rhetoric and actions wherever they occur, whether it's in Europe, the US, or other places. He is a champion of the poor, and it's another of the strains that inspires us. And of course, a great succession from Pope Francis, who had been very outspoken on these issues and causes, and that continues, we believe.
No, indeed. And I'd love to introduce you to who our next guest will be. He's running for Congress in Missouri's 4th, Hartzell Gray. If I know he always has to be on call time, as you know all about that as a congressperson. But he's running in Missouri's 4th in one of these gerrymandered districts. Hartzell, are you able to unmute? Are we able to unmute Hartzell? Well, maybe he's not available. So where do you think we sit on this? I mean, it seems in the last 24 hours that some of the recalcitrant forces in the United States thought that this was a bridge too far for Trump to pursue. I think there was a Republican senator who spoke out against this. So this is really an important week in Congress and in the Senate. Is there anything that the House can do? You feel like there's no way that we can trust that we'll get enough Republican votes to swing the House on the funding, or is it already passed through the House?
It's passed the House, depending on what happens in the Senate. But right now, I think there's great leverage in the Senate because of the public sentiment. We have seen the MAGA movement, for example, appear to be quite divided on what has transpired in Minneapolis, the latest killing of Alex Pretty, as one example, because you can't deny what you see. And what you see is someone who was documenting what was going on, the practices of ICE, going to assist a woman who had been tear gassed or, applied some chemical irritants, and he was trying to help her. And then we see agents go after him and start to trample him to the ground. And then when they've got him subdued on the ground, they continue to just pounce on him. And then we hear what sounds like up to 10 shots. And I think that people are having a real problem with what the White House and DHS are saying. And I think more and more people now see the pattern that no matter what happens, you accuse people of being terrorists, of being a threat to ICE agents who are depicted as lawful servants of law enforcement, when in fact they are terrorizing communities. They are making communities unsafe. They're terrorizing because of their mere presence with masks, with military armaments, the way they talk to people, the way that they approach people, the way that they escalate and seek to cause confrontations. And I think that that's what's working against the administration. And that's why you'll see even people who identify as MAGA Republicans speaking out. They also feel like this is an opportunity, or this is an instance of people who believe in the Second Amendment and their right to possess or to carry firearms, as did Alex Pretty, that has to be defended, and that there's an effort here to smear him and to deny him that right, and to automatically brand him as a domestic terrorism when he was in total compliance with the law and his right to carry such a weapon. So, the moral weight of the injustice, I think, is on weighing on the American public, and this is an opportunity to unmask ICE and all of the terrible things that have come with the exorbitant amount of money that Republicans gave DHS in the big ugly bill, and of course their immunity, their impunity, regardless of actions that they are taking that are trampling on the Constitution, on due process, on people's civil liberties, and the right to assemble peacefully.
Yeah, and very frighteningly, in Kristi Noem's letter to, I believe it was Governor Walz, she made three demands, one of which was to hand over the voting rolls, right? And again, signifies this clear effort there'll be to interfere with the upcoming election. And of course, we have to hold on to, again, the sanctity of the fact that in our Constitution, our elections are run by the states. They're not run by the federal government. And so, hopefully, but we can't anticipate they are going to really make a show of interfering with these upcoming elections. So I know that you and your colleagues will do everything you can to protect the vote, because we need an honest vote. And when we have an honest vote, hopefully we will very much weaken the second half of this Trump administration by winning these elections in midterms.
And if we continue to push back and to tear the curtain off of the cover-up or the cover-ups that are occurring in so many instances, we can win a majority in the House, and we may have a shot at winning a majority in the Senate as well.
Indeed. Well, I know you have to run, so your folks had asked that we let you go about 2 minutes ago. So on behalf of Hartzell Gray, I say hello from Hartzell to you, and he'll be on in a few minutes. But just a final thought as you go, and we just honor your career, your service, and look forward to working with you over these next few months and then beyond for years to come. So final thoughts. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate and value all of the efforts of progressive Democrats of America. This is a very critical time in our nation's history. Not to be dramatic, but I think we're at a crossroads that certainly reminds us of what was at stake in the Civil War. None other than freedom and the idea that all of us are created equal is on the line. The rise, of course, of authoritarianism is a worldwide phenomenon. But I think if the American people demonstrate that they are not ready to give up more of their rights, if they demonstrate that they value elections, that they value democracy, that they value due process, and that they oppose the things that we've seen unleashed by Donald Trump and the Department of Homeland Security and all of their minions, that we can get the country back on track and rebuild so much of the damage that has been done with the firing of so many government employees, career employees, and that we can get back to addressing basic issues of how we create real prosperity for all Americans, how we get back to constitutional and due process rule, and yes, to have a real debate about what kind of immigration policy we need to have, but one that takes into account what causes people to migrate, and of course, what are the present and future needs of our country to continue to be a place for prosperity for all people, with healthcare, with good wages, and of course, continuing to fight against a global threat, which is climate change for all of our people. This is what's really important, and that's why I am so grateful and proud to be associated as a progressive Democrat of America.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
you're one of one of the great leaders of our time, and it is an honor to have you here today.
Thank
And
you.
thank you so much. And so everybody, we are going to, of course, in the second hour, be joined by again Kevin from who is running for the county commissioner's position in Minnesota. And we are hoped to be joined by Hartzell Gray, who was with us earlier, but I think he got caught up in his call time, which is again something that I can always let people know that I had a friend who worked in the office of a swing district this past summer up on Capitol Hill, and I asked him about how much contact he had with the congressperson. It was a Democratic office, and he said that the person pretty much had to spend half of their time on calls, and that's the crazy system we
Hey,
have.
Alan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hartzell is not with us, but Hanya
Yeah.
is.
Oh,
If she wants to jump in.
oh, sure. Hi, Hanya. How you doing? Um, Welcome, Hanya, if you can hear me. If we can unmute Hanya.
Unmute.
Hey,
Hi. Hi,
hey,
friends.
hey, how you doing? We lost Hartzell somehow.
No, we have not yet, but unfortunately, he's on a call with the Disability Caucus of Missouri right now,
Okay.
and he is just giving his speech. I think the speech ran a little bit over, so he should be joining us at the top of the hour here. But Alan, I'm all the way overseas. I do apologize if I'm not turning my
That's
camera
okay.
on, but yeah, more than happy to give you all a quick update on the status of the campaign, talk about some of our endorsements briefly, and then we can jump onto Hartzell when he's here. And if anybody has any questions, I can't really see the chat right now. Again, it's been storming, and the wind here is so bad
Well,
in France.
Well,
Horrible.
I'm gonna
So
jump in and actually take the
yeah.
opportunity that you're in France to say that, one of the things that didn't play as big in the domestic United States because of the level of crises we have with our domestic activities is just how much of a train wreck Trump was, of all places, at Davos.
Oh
Um,
God.
and what that actually signified is the same time as we now see more Americans recognize that what is going on with the Gestapo ICE forces in the domestic United States is being a bridge too far. Trump crashed and burned on the international stage this past week like he had never done before. And this has created basically almost an open rebellion of nations. Some of it's tacit. Our northern neighbor, it's a pretty open
Yeah.
rebellion from Mark Carney.
Yeah.
And then Macron a little bit more. Starmer, boy, that guy has no backbone whatsoever. Hi, William Walter, I can see
Mm.
you there. And Keir Starmer has no backbone. But at the same time, a lot of countries, and look, we want what's best for the domestic population of the United States, which pretty much means we got to get rid of this administration, or we got to marginalize it and contain its impact. But then countries doing trade with China is not a bad thing. But really, right after Davos, these countries, a bunch of them reached out and are setting up trade pacts with China, viewing the United States as too incoherent a force on the international stage to really be participating with. And
Mm.
the way Trump is throwing the tariffs around and everything, the way that he's not respecting international institutions, undermining them openly, and then just all the kind of just insanity that he spewed at Davos. People were stunned at the incoherence of what he put forward, but and how offensive it all was. But yes, and of course Greenland, the idea that he's going to go against his allies and
Yeah.
to actually invade a country that we have a we're officially have a agreement with is actually technically treasonous. So they were outraged, and you're in Europe right now. But yeah, I mean, do you sense that this is still ongoing?
Oh,
Yeah,
oh my God. I mean, everybody I talked to, there was a time I remember even, I don't agree with a lot of former President Obama's policies on immigration and, his foreign policy at all in any way, shape, or form. But there was a time where you used to travel, and during his administration, I would travel overseas and people would just wave their hands and say, hey, we love Americans, we love Obama. The culture and the attitude towards American has significantly changed in Europe. They feel sorry for us because they're also up to date with the news that's happening. I have friends who are, sitting there watching Instagram, sending me messages about, is everything okay there? We just found out about, this new shooting that happened in
right.
Minneapolis. And, it's just, it's so sad. And, I think there's also an issue here. There's a rival who's a right wing running against Macron, who's her name is Le Pen, far right as well. Kind of a Trump, ideologically aligned with Trump on many things. A bit more on the to the left of Trump, I would say, but nonetheless, there's an uprising here, in support of her ideologies. And I was having lunch with a friend of mine, and I said, maybe this is a learning lesson for people in France. That Macron he may not be good on everything, but he's at least not a fascist like Le Pen, like Trump, right? So it's just been a really weird shift in people's attitudes towards Americans. And I hate to say this, once, used to be, I always say this is a country I do not recognize anymore. But once upon a time, there used to be a sense of pride in almost being an American. I don't know, again, like I said, this is a very
Sure.
broken system. We know this for sure. But my God, right now people feel sorry for us. Like they almost want to save us. Right? How do we help? So it's
Right.
been it's been rather interesting. And then obviously, Alan, I'll you know give you we'll talk about um the conference in Barcelona. But I think there's
Well, well,
yeah,
we
yeah,
should well just again, Hartzell, if we could go to Mike Fox right now, and
yeah,
then when Hartzell gets on, we'll try to squeeze him in before we get to Kevin, but maybe we'll have to go to
sure,
Kevin if he's not joined us yet. And then so Mike, why don't you give us news? Thank you for that, and thank you for the little back and forth about what
yeah, for sure.
transpired in Europe. Again, there's quite a shift in the consciousness right now about the United States under Trump's leadership. And again, people do not, we got to make sure as a progressive formation and in coordination with the Democratic Party that we make clear to these countries around the world that we want to consolidate power against the Trumpians to win elections and to, again, reaffirm an internationalist, humanist, pro-democracy, but not at the point of a gun, of course, self-determination for all peoples around the world, kind of foreign policy again. And because right now they view the likelihood of the Republican Party with this insanity winning every other election such that they can no longer trust being in alliance with the United States of America. Thank you for that, Hanya. And Mike
Of course.
Fox, what are our PDA's to-dos for the week? And talk to you soon, Hanya. Thank you so much. And Mike Fox, PDA to-dos for the week. And I'll be back in 3 minutes.
All righty then. Number one to do is my favorite job of the week. Here's some thank yous. The following folks have donated today. Thank you so much. John and Joanne and Greta for your more than kind sustaining donation. And Gary and Becky and Dr. Sonneborn double dipping, or I should say double doing. Dr. Sonneborn making calls and tossing in a donation. Same for phone banker Betsy. And thank you, Russell. And same for phone banker Erica, double doing, and Linda, and double doing Mary Ellen, and Charles, double doing Carol, phone banker Carol, and Julie. Judith, and Bob, our Missouri State Chapter leader. Thanks for being here, brother. And phone banker Michael, and Joseph, phone banker Beverly, Dorothy, for your, as always, more than kind $100, Dorothy. Gang, serious business. What we're looking for is solidarity here. So any amounts more than appreciated. However, Dorothy's been kind enough to stand up with a $100 donation. I would ask anybody who can show solidarity with Dorothy. Toss in $100 if you can make it. I will personally match the next donation of 3 figures there. Solidarity, solidarity. And phone banker Mary, thank you. Phone banker Aaron, thank you. And there's Bob again. And phone banker Mary again. And Michael up in Chicago, who always starts us off. So thank you all for your kind donations. We let's see where we're at on our goal towards phone banking shifts. Okay, we're still 11 short on our phone banking shift goal. So I'm going to toss into the chat here the way that you, yes, you can jump on the phones with us for just an hour and make a really big difference. Okay. That's going to be tossed into the chat in just a second. And if you don't see it, just go to pdamerica.org/volunteer. Just go to pdamerica.org and hit the volunteer button. Bottom line, 1 hour is what we're looking for, gang. And we're pushing vote out in that special election. We are likewise pushing participation in street events that are going to be taking place around this whole ICE situation. Busy, busy, busy times. So pile on with us. Many, many hands make for light lifting, as my grandfather used to always say. So help us with that lift. And then likewise, if you can toss in $1 or $2 or $5 or 100 or however many, go to pdamerica.org, hit that donate button, make something happen. I'm likewise tossing the direct link into the chat. Back to you. We'll be actually, it'll be back to me when we wrap this on the back end here. Once we stop the recording and we go into family time, that's where we're really going to dive into those goals. So let's have something to hoot about when we go into family time. Okay, back to you, Alan.
Thank you so much. And if we can bring forward and unmute Kevin Chavez. Chavez, sorry. And he is running for Hennepin County Commissioner in the 3rd District, and that is the county within which Minneapolis is. I want to encourage people, though, to sign up to be a phone banker, phone caller, because we really, really need to do a huge lift to elect Ana Lilia Mejia in New Jersey's 11th District. I had not met her until our town hall last week, and I was blown away by what a fantastic, unbelievable candidate she is. And I think she will be a great advocate for the working people and all people in the United States when she is in the U.S. House of Representatives. Spectacular candidate, real opportunity to win this, have a great progressive victory in advance of the primary season. This election is on February 5th, Thursday, February 5th. And Ana Lilia, after having a great event with Bernie Sanders, the day after our town hall, just 6 days ago on Monday, is the candidate with the wind in her sails, and let's lift her to victory. So become a phone banker, and if you can't, either become a phone banker or make a financial donation. So
Hey,
one or the
Alan?
other, folks. That's for everybody. Yep. Hello,
Hartzell
Jim.
has just joined us.
Hartzell has joined us. Let me bring forward Kevin and then Hartzell very quickly. Kevin Chavez, are you with us?
I don't see Kevin Chavez in the room.
No, there's nobody by that name here.
Okay. Then Mike Olis, if you can bing Kevin, let's go to Hartzell then. And Hartzell Gray, how you doing? Hartzell Gray, welcome to our town hall. And Hartzell,
hold on, got to get him co-hosted here somehow.
Representative Chuy Garcia sends his solidarity. And how's it going in Missouri's 4th District? And yeah, give us an update on the race. While we, of course, everybody in Minneapolis is very busy these days, so Kevin Chavez will be joining us soon as well.
There we go. Live radio, my friends. There we are.
Yeah, wow. It's in a few weeks, actually, I think on Super Bowl Sunday, 2 weeks from today, we're gonna have a second hour segment with a with a community radio project that is for persons developing it across the country. It's just something to introduce PDAers to the idea of, just to come to terms with the reality of the loss of local journalism and local media institutions that really have a local community feel. And this is a project to do that. And even just that kind of, pro-community activism really just jibes with progressivism. But you, my friend, were and are a great radio and podcast host. But alas, you are now running for the U.S. House of Representatives, which is outlined in the first article of what we are hoping is not an obsolete document, the U.S. Constitution. But the U.S. Congress, it seems, under the Trump administration, has been marginalized into, they desire to push it into invisibility, as everything would be run by the great leader. I mean, he actually set up this week a board of peace, which unfortunately a number of prominent leaders around the world refused to join. And this was sort of like a thing that would, be parallel and he would probably hope would supersede the United Nations. And the base rule was that there's not 5 countries that sit on a Security Council that have vetoes. There's one person. It's Donald Trump in perpetuity. I think that's just exactly what the world needs right now. But alas, we want to get you into Congress. We want to have Congress operating as it should. And what do you make of what's going on in the country right now, Hartzell?
My goodness. Well, Alan, everyone, thank you so much on my PDA family for having me back home. It is let's kick it off with a quote. The old world is dying and the new world struggles to be born. Now is the time of monsters. But I actually go to that quote. I go to that Gramsci quote, not in defeat, but actually as a weird pump me up. You know what? Because that new world is what I'm interested in. It was Fannie Lou Hamer that said that she was sick and tired of being sick and tired, but she also said that we shall overcome. These are the times that try our souls, says Thomas Paine, but we have it within our power to begin the world over again. And I do want to start just with the tragedy, this extension of American authoritarianism. And I think we need to call it that because I actually have been at fault on this rhetoric as well. And that what we're going through is not the Gestapo. This is uniquely American from day one, from the genocide and ethnic cleansing of our indigenous folks. What we're seeing now are modern day slave catchers and slave patrols. Again, this is uniquely American. And so to throw that aside is in some service advocating our responsibility, but also it is erasing the spirits of that history of revolution, of fighting back. It erases, by just us putting those blinders on, it erases the struggle of our abolitionists, of our suffragettes, of our disability activists, of our folks who champion a free Palestine, ending genocide, ending occupation. Those things get missed when we don't confront what it is that we're facing. And that is what this is. This is state-sanctioned erasure, state-sanctioned violence, an extension of dear leaders' conquest of domestic imperialism, but also all across the world. But we have a moral clarity that comes from that history that I talked about. We have a moral clarity that came from me, from my great-grandmother, who was a sharecropper, literally picked cotton, brought us here, got a house, raised us, and turned that house into a home. The deed said no colored folks allowed, but she made it work. My grandmother, she used to listen to Angela Davis. She's a 90-year-old radical now. My mother, a nurse. My father, a photographer, where I honed my voice. There's a certain moral clarity that comes from that. I am my brother, my sister. I have each other's back because we have to. We can be free and fed. You have a moral clarity when you organize with folks on the ground, with tenants, with single moms, working class folks. There's clarity and also policy. We know that we need universal health care, guaranteed housing, guaranteed job with living wage, climate action, to divest from the war machine so we can quit bombing babies and building bridges. Like, that's not a thought experiment. We get that from that moral clarity of who we are as folks on the left. And so that is what I am running on, and that's why it is resonating. We can call it a freedom budget, But what it is a plan to keep us free and fed, and we know how to do it. We have to tax the rich. We redistribute that wealth. We dismantle the systems that are killing us. We get money out of politics that would have all those things in my freedom budget say that we don't deserve those because it's not profiting the shareholders and the oligarchs. We're going to make sure that we dismantle those systems so we can guarantee those basics. And it is resonating, my friend. Those are my mission statements, but it is our movement, and folks are ready to take our country back. And so we turn this moment into a movement.
The things that I know that you stand for and that you advocate for, the redistribution of wealth, the taxing of the wealthy needs to happen. It definitely needs to happen. And by the way, all those, if the United States can actually become democratic and strong, we can start addressing things like the places that they shelter money offshore and the reshoring of all that wealth back to the domestic United States, but also lifting basically half the population out of poverty or near poverty creates doubles the pool, more than doubles the pool of middle-class taxpayers. And that can, on the one hand, take some of the tax burden off the middle class, but also really, I mean, if you just even have that happen at the 2/3 level, so let's say fully have it happen, but then you lower the tax burden on the middle class, you would still have funded all of the social programs we would want to see funded. I mean, the revenue that would be generated at the federal level by lifting up basically half the population, not basically extracting tax money because of their poverty and precarity, but to contributing at the levels that now middle class or upper middle class households do, would really, you could have education spending, childcare spending. You could address the shortage in housing just by a federal works project could address it directly, right? And you could have, of course, universal single payer health care and free public college tuition. And all
well, Alan, we can
affordable.
say all those. We can say all those things, and we know those things, but all of it, you forgot about the North Star. That's love, my friend. We are rooted. No, hear me out. We are rooted in love and liberation and light and life. I mean, and that is not that's not grasping at crystals. It is realizing that we deserve it all. We deserve the most. It's not just that it will save us money to declare war on poverty. It's that we have declared war on the impoverished currently. We are criminalizing homelessness. So when we say that we are running on love and light and liberation for all of us, no matter who you are, it's because I am sick and tired of seeing that single mom have to put away a grocery item because that's one too many, because if she gets that one, she can't pay for rent next month. And we can talk about GDP and charts and all that, but don't forget about the love of our folks. I am a socialist because I love our people, not because, Gramsci said it in the prison papers. No, it's because we deserve it all.
One of the great radical philosophers of our time is a Frenchman named Alain Badiou, and he's very political and he's very left-wing, and he posits love as being absolutely this almost this extra force in human life that has to be understood philosophically as lifting us into sort of another way of being, and but is human and very human, and so check that out, folks. Hartzell Gray plus Alain Badiou.
That's what a remix, huh?
It's beautiful. I love it. He's a good guy. I've met him. He's a great guy. Okay. So, focus on the staff. Has Kevin been able to join us? And Mike Olis can maybe give an update on that. Because we do have this.
Yes, Alan, he is here.
Great. Fantastic. But Hartzell, stick with us, Hartzell. Just quickly, before you go, Hartzell.
Oh, I'm not going anywhere. Y'all stuck with me.
No, right now, before we introduce Kevin. Okay, in the next 3 minutes, folks, I think we need to get some money raised here. For Hartzell's campaign, we have a split donation page we have here. And if you haven't donated already, or if you've donated haven't donated at all, or if you already donated but you now also want to support Hartzell's campaign, please contribute. We want to make sure this is a well-financed campaign. Hartzell has a real chance, very good chance, of winning his primary, getting into the general election, and then through all of the policies that we support at PDA and that Hartzell's going to highlight, and all that he also brings to the table himself, this is a winnable district. Hartzell can end up in Congress and I think really be a leading light, breaking the mold of winning one of these gerrymandered districts in Missouri, and or if it's not gerrymandered, because I think this is still in the courts in Missouri, let's get Hartzell Gray into Congress. Let's support his candidacy, and I believe that the link is in the chat right now. And of course,
this is going to be one of the most important races in the country. We are going to take back the majority, and there's a very real possibility that that's going to happen with Missouri's 4th district when we take this seat. And friends, I'll be quick, Alan, but I do want folks to realize how much you are needed in this movement, but also how close we are to doing something actually transformational, spectacular, and rooted in being free and being fed. What was a D+40 district pre-gerrymandering is now an R+20 district. Was R40, now R20. Democrats right now, we've seen with Afton Bame's performance, which PDA so strongly supported and helped get to the level of where it ended up being. Democrats nationally right now are overperforming by +15. So already we are within 5. In Jackson County, the biggest county in this district, also in the last district. The voter turnout in 2024, a presidential election, was down 34%. I am going to raise those numbers. This is the first race we've ever had. So friends, now we aren't even just within the margin of error. We are now leading this race. That's not a crapshoot. That's not a pipe dream. That is reality. That is what we have in front of us. That's the opportunity. Let's win this. We got us. Let's go win this.
Yeah. And let me I do apologize for one thing, for making foregrounding one element of your profile, which is your youth. To have Hartzell Gray be in Congress alongside Maxwell Alejandro Frost, Greg Casar, the head of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, relatively young congressperson like Delia Ramirez, and others, we will have. You look at the people who make up the Republican caucus versus the Progressive Democratic caucus, and the world will see that the future of American politics is with Hartzell, Maxwell, Greg, Delia, etc., and Summer Lee and onwards, folks. And so let's get Hartzell into Congress, folks, and let's just let him have a great war chest during the primaries. He's going to ride to victory in the primaries, but he's going to his message across the district: solidarity and love, Hartzell Gray. Thank you. And
brother.
Love you. Hey, and now let's, as I introduce Kevin, I'd love William maybe to co-host with me here, if you like, William. So I'm going to introduce again Kevin Chavez, who is running for the Hennepin County Commissioner's seat in District 3 in the county, and that is the county that Minneapolis is in. And so Kevin is at the heart of center stage for world news right now. And welcome, Kevin. And if maybe just to start out, if you can let us know your reflections on what is transpiring in your hometown right now.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. Thank you for inviting me here. My name is Kevin Chavez. I'm a lifelong Minnesotan running for Hennepin County Commissioner in District 3 on the issues of affordability, because life has become very unaffordable for folks. And Hennepin County is the social and economic safety net for so many folks in Minnesotans in Hennepin County. Also accountability, making sure our government works for us and that people know what the county is doing. Also healthcare. I think healthcare is a human right. We need to get to single payer universal healthcare, or some system where everyone is guaranteed health. But in the meantime, we run the Hennepin healthcare hospital system, and anyone and everyone can be treated regardless of their health insurance status. And last but not least, top issue for me that I've been putting out there is the environment. And that's because we have to take care of our environment, not just for the people now, but for the next 7 generations. We had a company here in Minnesota, 3M, who polluted water with forever chemicals in a suburb, Woodbury, a suburb of St. Paul, Woodbury. And we are continuing to put, chemicals in our environment in a variety of ways. I know a lot of folks are organizing currently to close the incinerator that's owned by Hennepin County in downtown Minneapolis, located by an area that already has high concentrations of pollutants, and just happens to be in North Minneapolis, where a lot of African Americans, people of color, people who already don't have money already live, people with less resources. So we need to move to an economic system, an environmental system, an entire government system that actually puts people first, not just money, not just big donors, etc. And as you stated, I'm a few blocks from where ICE murdered Alex Preddy, and I didn't even know. I don't know if you want me to tell the story, but it was tomorrow. It was yesterday. It was just yesterday.
Yeah.
And Minnesota. We were just coming off of the high of a general strike on Friday, which many of us took part in. And I was going Saturday to just relax. I was actually, it's a bit nerdy, but I was going to a Doctor Who convention, and I was leaving. And then while I was in the elevator, one of my neighbors was like, "Hey, ICE is just down the street. They're over by B Resale. We think they're targeting them because they were doing some things to like help gather resources and food and so forth. They had food shelf, and they were just trying to do some community good. And of course, ICE has been targeting a lot of those folks. So I was like, oh dang, well, I'll head there first. I get there, and the whole area is just cordoned off. Nobody knew what was going on, but there was a lot of yelling at ICE folks, and you could just tell. Like I was in the Minnesota Army National Guard. I spent 6 years. You can tell a disciplined police officer from these ICE folks, from these Border Patrol folks, and they just seemed like they were ready for a fight. They wanted to continue to have a fight, and this was after they'd already killed someone, and I didn't even know at the time they had done that. I just started recording as soon as I got there. And then I looked at my signal chats and I saw more information. And I will just say it's appalling what's happening here in Minnesota. And it's really appalling the fact that our mainstream media is not covering it. And some of them maybe are, but I will say I get the print edition to Time Magazine. Here's the cover for the print edition to Time Magazine this last week. For the last 2 issues, they've covered Trump only on international issues. Nothing in Minnesota at all. For 2 weeks. I don't know how you can get away with not covering that.
By the way, one of the Silicon Valley oligarchs now owns Time Magazine.
I mean, that tracks, doesn't it? We have our entire economy being essentially eaten up by the rich. For instance, I'll give another example, a good example. There's a lot of good small businesses throughout the country that do great work, but they're getting bought up by the oligarchy who want a monopoly on everything. So, for instance, in the Twin Cities, there is a internet company called USI Fiber, United States Internet Fiber, and they give fiber much cheaper than Google, much cheaper than Comcast, much cheaper than these big Fortune 500 companies, and it's the fastest internet you can get, and it's cheap. It's like I pay $50 a month for 100 gigabytes. Nobody can get that anywhere in the US. And they were bought just a couple months ago by T-Mobile. So I'm guessing my internet's going to get jacked up. And I think that government agencies need to be looking at this and saying, okay, how can we kind of hold on to these companies and keep them like locally owned or cooperatively owned instead of letting these big businesses kind of buy up our community? So those are things I'm thinking about going into this campaign. I will say also, when I created my website, one of my issues was protecting our immigrant communities. And some of my supporters were like, hey, Kev, like, why? That seems like a federal issue. Why would you put that on your website? And this was before ICE had killed Renee Good. And I was like, well, ICE has been here since December, and they're escalating. And it doesn't look like it's going to go away. And I look at Hennepin County as a government agency that has to fill in the gaps when the state, when the city, when the feds aren't doing the right thing. We need to figure out, like, how can we make, for instance, libraries safe third spaces for community members to gather in, and then their information isn't going to be sold to another government agency that's going to be outside the door and arrest them because they're an immigrant, for instance, or they read the wrong books, or they criticize the president by saying something that offends him. We want to live in a society where people are free and where people can meet freely, associate freely, and not be oppressed by the government. And so I look at Hennepin County as a way to kind of fight back on that. I do personally feel that I shouldn't be allowed on Hennepin County property whatsoever. Um, that maybe if they have a judicial warrant, some legitimacy. But personally, I think that Congress needs to defund them. They've only been around for 23 something years. They were created after 9/11 as a reaction. And I think a lot of the things that came out of legislation from 9/11 on national security, we really need to look back on that and see, like, how is this affecting our privacy? How is this affecting people generations from now and people now that are being targeted by the government? I just think it's appalling, and so that's one. So that is what motivates me to continue running for this seat. I will say I wasn't planning to run for office, but there were a lot of folks that were really upset about the incumbent, and I decided to throw my hat in the ring because I knew other people were going to run that I didn't frankly feel would be qualified for the position, and um, I'm continuing to run as a progressive. I don't know if you know Mike Olays. He was talking about,
Yes.
I worked with him before. I was a co-founder of Our Revolution Twin Cities here as a Bernie delegate, Bernie supporter from 2016 on. He said to continue to get folks elected at the local level on up. And that's what I've continued to do each and every year since 2016. In fact, in 2016, I spent much of that summer canvassing for Ilhan Omar. You probably heard of her. Got her to the Minnesota House.
Right to the House, right then, right.
Yep.
Right.
In 2017, we flipped our Minneapolis City Council more progressive. And 2018, we defeated a 27-year incumbent on the Hennepin County Board with Angela Connolly, who has been fighting systemic racism at the county for quite a while. But it's a kind of a lonely fight. But I plan on being there if elected. I plan on being right there with her in supporting initiatives to eliminate racial disparities because the Twin Cities has some of the highest racial disparities in the country. And the Twin Cities is frankly a great place to live, but the disparities are holding back people of color. And we can't hold anyone back. If we, I come from the labor movement, and injury to one is an injury to all. We have to support everyone and make Minnesota a place and Hennepin County a place that everyone can live in and thrive, not just being able, just not just barely surviving. And so that's what also motivates me to run for office. Not sure if you have any questions or.
Oh, sure, sure. No, actually, even before William, let's Olis, if you're around, unmute and just say a quick hi to Kevin and any thoughts you want to share. Then over to William for a question, then back to me for another question, and then we can take questions from the audience.
Yeah, Kevin, great to see you again. And Kevin and I have worked together now for a long time. And when Kevin was telling me he was running for office, that was exciting to me, and somebody who I felt has been a rock of the progressive movement, maybe an unheralded rock, but somebody who's been there really since for a long time. And so these are type of people we got to get elected to office, of course. But obviously the tragedy in Minnesota and now the national fight against ICE, and how we wrap up the Trump administration and move into a new era is going to be critical. And so Kevin's on the front line of that, and so is all of our Twin Cities, our siblings up there. And so, Kevin, my question for you is, like, how do we support the movement best, and how do we learn from the Minnesota experience so when they come for other cities that we're ready and prepared?
So yes, there are. So I will say that there are a number of ways. I actually include that on my website, kevinchavis.org. But I'll put this in the chat. There's this great website called standwithminnesota.com and also defend612.com. And I'll put those in the chat. So Defend 612 is one way that folks are joining some of the signal groups, and it's based on your geographic location, so your neighborhood. People are joining those. They're also getting training to be observers, observing what ICE is doing. And so people are learning various different skills through some of the nonprofits and organizations here and through Defend 612. And then Stand With Minnesota, that is a website that compiles all the different mutual aid groups and nonprofit groups, including unions. So for instance, I'm in AFSCME Local 34, which is part of the Minneapolis Regional Labor Federation, AFL-CIO, and we have an organization called Working Partnerships that assists union members who are struggling, going through hard times. So we have a fundraiser that's also listed on that website, standwithminnesota.com. And then if people are looking for food, looking for resources, they can also go to that same website and try to get help. We have a lot of immigrant families who are afraid to go outside right now, afraid to go to the store. And so people are going to the store for them. People are stepping up to say, hey, how can I help my immigrant neighbors in this time when if they go outside, they could be grabbed by ICE. We are also recommending if you do go outside, don't go alone. Try to go with somebody else. Because if ICE sees somebody alone by themselves, it doesn't matter they're just like kidnapping people. Nation we're giving folks that are going out. I don't know if that helps answer your question, but I think these two websites would be good resources and places for people to look at and what they can do in their community. I'm part of signal groups in my neighborhood, and that's how I found out a little bit. Like I found out very quickly what happened after I got to the scene yesterday.
And I'll say this too, Kevin. What we'll do is we technically we're on a call right now of our federal PAC, which is Progressive Democrats of America. We have a national 501c4, which can endorse local and state candidates. And Mike Ollis and I will look into motivating people in your district in the county to pursue. Always have to say potential, but to pursue a potential endorsement for your candidacy. So thank you for outlining your candidacy to us. It obviously is perfectly aligned with Progressive Democrats of America and our 501c4 Progressives for Democracy in America. William Walter, how you doing in Wisconsin? I understand you were out in a solidarity demonstration earlier today.
I was. We also had one yesterday, middle of the day, 3 or 4 hours notice, and about 500 people showed up despite the 15 below zero wind chill. And that was in the middle of a scheduled general strike forum that a local organization was hosting, which was then pushed to the end of the rally so that everybody who attended the rally could also attend that, which will lead into my question, which is that I was so incredibly inspired to see Minnesota's Day of Action blackout on the 23rd. I've long argued that a mass general strike, bringing the economic powers to their knees overnight, reminding them that we, the workers, the American worker, is the engine of economic productivity, and the parasites at the top of the economic pyramid do nothing but exploit value from our labor. And we are more than capable of reminding them of that. Our ancestors, our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents fought this battle years ago. The vast majority of amenities that most individuals today take for granted were not handed to us. They were earned. So my question is, how can we best duplicate the process that you all used to organize this mass day of action? In Wisconsin, we are actually quite literally trying to do that. We looked at what you did on the 23rd and said, boy, that was fantastic. Let's do that ourselves. What do you think step one is in that regard? And why do you think it's more important to showcase collective worker solidarity than any other potential avenue to fight back against the powers that be at this moment?
I worry that Kevin.
Did we lose Kevin?
Kevin, it looked like he was having a little bit of a shaky connection. Kevin, can you unmute? Oh, he has to be asked to unmute. Maybe there we go. Yep.
Sorry, can you?
Yep. We can hear you and see you now.
Again, it got off. Perfect.
So your connection is a little shaky, but go for it.
Sorry, what was asked of me again? I missed it.
How to replicate the general strike call. This is something that is often done even regionally or nationally, and it doesn't really develop. But then you guys pulled it off, which was amazing.
Correct. So the general strike, what we did is we actually, this was only 2 weeks ago, by the way. I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was right after Renee Good was killed. We were like some union folks were talking about, like, what do we do? Oh, we need to set in a couple of weeks a general strike to give us some time to prep for it and so forth. And then we just started asking organizations to sign on to not work. We didn't call it a general strike. In fact, we explicitly told folks that were organizing, do not call it a general strike. Just say, if you can, don't work, don't go to school, and don't shop, and of course, not everyone can do all those things. Some people work in essential employment. For instance, I work in a government agency and was required to work part of that day. But if you're able to and willing to, and you're especially in the private sector job where they're focused on profits, we try to encourage folks, if they can, take a day off.
Can I ask a question on that? Because I understood that because I was on a national organizing call a week before around supporting the action in Minnesota, but it was spread around the country that it was called a general strike. So did people just not suffocate that? They let it sort of be out there, or how did that go?
Well, we didn't suffocate it, but we weren't the ones propagating it. So that if our employers or whoever came back to and said, "Hey, what's this general strike?" Well, this is not what we were saying. We were calling for these things, and so it has helped in that instance. The other thing is we told organizations that signed on, like, "Hey, we're going to have a march at 2 p.m., but you can have your own actions whenever throughout the day." So we had folks in greater Minnesota that they just targeted all of their Target stores. And we had folks at HDMC in my union AFSCME in a different local who had a lunch press conference where they brought up all their concerns with the employer and the fact that ICE was being allowed in the hospitals, arresting folks and bringing up the concerns. So getting folks to sign on can be super important, but also letting them know that this is their action too. We're all doing something on that day, but we're also wanting to take action to support our own organizations and our own causes. And so you had faith groups, you had unions, you had You had some ideological groups, like Twin Cities DSA, Our Revolution Twin Cities, of course, support it. So it was a broad coalition of organizations that signed on, and some said, "Yeah, we can support everything except for the strike, or we can, whatever it is." But overall, we all supported each other because we understood that it was too important to not have some sort of collective action after what happened. And we felt it went extremely well. Organization to see how many of our members can show up to this, how many members can we quickly turn to an action. So I look at that as an opportunity for organizations to look.
So it looks like my connection got bad there too. So I wanted to throw to Donna Smith. I saw Donna had a question for you.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. Thank you so much for Kevin for offering us some suggestions on where we can go as Americans around the country are wondering what can we do to help Minnesota and not only show our solidarity but bring an end to what's going on. So thank you for giving us those sites. Do you support us doing everything we can to get the United States Senate not to pass the budget bill unless they take out funding for ICE? Do you support that?
I completely support that. ICE should have been defunded a long time ago. We're seeing healthcare cuts. We're seeing cuts to food assistance and cuts to working families, cuts to childcare. And so we're cutting all those folks, and then we're going to give tons of money to ICE. Like, it's insane how much money we have given to ICE. That whole organization needs to go, and we need something different.
100%. So I would suggest, folks, you've got to call your United States senators and just pile on that the budget bill cannot pass the Senate with funding for ICE in it, period.
Thank you, Donna. Should we go to Stack? I suppose we should. Kevin, do you have time to stay with us for a little while?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great. Thank you. Carly Fines, please unmute. And you have Kevin Chavez, who's again running for
Hi,
County
Kevin.
Commissioner. Go for it, Carly.
I'm actually asking a question and speaking on behalf of a progressive candidate that's running for Senate in my state of New Hampshire. She's an environmentalist and peace activist named Karishma Manzoor, and I wanted to ask your perspective on how environmental racism in general, how it's always affected people of color, and would you be willing to look into Karishma because to possibly endorse her? Because I'm wondering if when it comes to environmental racism and environmentalists, a person of color such as Karishma would probably be one of the best people to talk to about the matter, because it isn't just dumping PFAS in our waters. It's the war in Gaza and the war of but it's the war in Gaza causing environmental footprint catastrophes, among other things. All this comes together. So don't you think that so don't you think that's a problem that we need to address, and it has people who live that life firsthand running the show? Don't you think that would be a better idea?
Karishma has filled out our Senate questionnaire, and we're going to
About
review it, and we're going to then toss it to people in New Hampshire and have them. We'll do a statewide poll, and we'll see if they'll endorse her for Senate. I would personally,
please,
I would personally support that, because Chris Pappas is being channeled into winning that seat by the establishment. He's a member of the House. I do know Chris Pappas. He's a nice guy. Have very good conversations with him. He is very conservative Democrat, and we simply are we have to be past the point of electing conservative Democrats to the U.S. Senate, where they have 6-year terms. I mean, these are Chris does not support Medicare for all, for instance. Chris is one of the most is certainly on economic matters right voting members of the Democratic delegation. So of course, naturally, the establishment wing of the party was happy to see him pushed forward. Now it's of course considered a little bit of a sticky state for progressives, because it has a Republican tradition that remains strong there, and they're worried that he would lose to Sununu. But I think Karishma would be a great candidate, and I think we just have to send a clear message that we can't be endorsing conservative Democrats for Senate within this party anymore. And thank you for that, Carly. I'll just go on to John, especially if you have a question for Kevin about Minnesota or about.
Yeah, let's stay on topic, please. Thank you.
John, go ahead.
Yeah, Kevin, thank you for running. I am a physician who worked at Hennepin County Medical Center for 45 years. I know that the finances at Hennepin County Medical Center are very serious right now, and there's talk of closing that institution. I personally do not think a hospital should be punished because they're willing to treat patients who do not have health insurance. When you become county commissioner, what plans do you have to help the hospital?
Great question. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. Thank you for your service, your public service in at the hospital at UCMC. Hennepin Healthcare is super important. I helped elect many of our local officials here in Minnesota for Senator Omar Fateh, Senator Zainab Mohammed, Representative Aisha Gomez. Oh, the time's going off.
No, that's not. That's the time's up. If we can just shut that off, Steph. Thank you. Sorry. Go ahead.
So I'll say that I helped elect a lot of local officials, especially statewide, and city council, park board, etc. So what's interesting about the county commissioners is they have a lot of time off, and so some of them should be spending that time at the Capitol advocating for these specific issues and that we need funding for, because the county can't do it on property taxes alone. We're going to need some funding from the federal government and the state. So I'll be in connection with folks at the Capitol, and actually at the Capitol, speaking at the Capitol to fight for these funds, because I think it's too important to not have somebody who's going to fight for these things, fight for these programs. And frankly, a lot of people don't realize that there's only 7 county commissioners, and they should be actively speaking publicly about what the county does, how they administer programs like the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, childcare and cash assistance, as well as medical assistance and other healthcare programs. We administer those programs. We make sure that the public gets those. And so we should be having things like wraparound services at the hospital, which we do, but we could do a better job on to getting people the funding that they should be getting for healthcare, as well as all the services that the county could be effectively providing to our residents. People shouldn't have to go to like 7 different buildings to get their paperwork done at the county. They should be able to go to one building and get as much done as possible. That's from an administrative standpoint. And second, I want to make sure we get funding from the state and feds. I helped elect Ilhan. I think she is a great champion. She would support a lot of the things that you all talk about. But we also need to make sure that we elect good people to the Senate. And so that's another kind of sticking point, as folks mentioned. It tends to be a little bit conservative, so it's a lot tougher to get things through there. But I think as a local elected official, that in a position that tends to get ignored by the public, I think I would be in a very, very important position to elevate these issues and make sure that other elected officials in the district pay attention. Especially if I'm elected, because they'll be like, oh, Kevin got elected on a progressive policy slate. I probably should listen to him and his constituents.
Thank you for that. Let's go to Moji, and then after Moji, back to Kevin. Then William can either have another question or ask Mimi to ask a question, or both. Moji, please unmute. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. And first of all, wonderful work that you're doing, Kevin, and other brothers and sisters in justice. I am, as some of you know, I am from Iran, and right now I am deeply distressed about what's happening, especially now that Trump is seems to be preparing to attack Iran with Israeli instigation. And what I want to mention is that the kind of systemic savagery that we are experiencing here in Minnesota, for example. I am in Boulder, Colorado, but we are experiencing it in the belly of the beast, is directly related to, and the other side of the coin of external savagery, i.e. militarism. So the more as global North politicians...
Please wrap your question quickly. Yep.
The more you, as deeply well-meaning global North politicians, the more you connect these two, internal repression and external aggression, then you're going to speak to a much deeper interrelationship of what Dr. Mossadegh of Iran, the Gandhi of Iran, said before he was overthrown in 1953 by the CIA and MI6, that internal despotism and external colonialism are two sides of the same coin. So please try to do that, make that connection.
Thank you. Kevin, your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think you're absolutely correct. In fact, I think the solution to that is what I've already seen in Minnesota, solidarity. A lot of when last year, I don't remember folks, but the uncommitted movement got the highest percentage of folks to vote for uncommitted for
in
president
Minnesota.
In the primaries in Minnesota. We had the highest percentage. I think Michigan had more delegates, but we had the highest percentage. And my campaign is connected to that movement because my campaign manager is a military veteran who is a part of that movement, who used to support kind of the military industrial complex, understood like, no, actually we're oppressing people there and here. And we need to fight back on that. So we had in the DFL, we had indigenous people who were standing up for Palestinian rights. We had Muslims who were standing up for human rights. We had the LGBT community who are supporting the uncommitted movement as well. We had this, and then of course progressives, and we built a coalition of folks that had made a huge impact here in Minnesota. And I think that that's what we have to do going forward. These issues are all interconnected. We have so many people get elected to public office because they're experts in like a specific field. But we need to get to the point where, no, we need to see the interconnection, kind of the general connection between all these different systems, and how maybe if we treated people in other countries a little better, we wouldn't have anyone trying to bomb our country at all, because we're helping them. We're improving their lives. We're improving their country to the point that people won't have. And it's same thing with climate change. If we take care of climate change, we're going to have fewer climate refugees, because people can stay where they grew up and were born instead of having to leave because we're destroying their environment. So I look at the militarism and I look at what's happening with Trump, very interconnected. The reason Minneapolis is being punished is because we're standing up, and we're not going to stop standing up for what's right, and we're going to win.
Love it. William.
I mean, my question was about the general strike, Alan. My question was answered.
Oh, there we go.
Well, I would go to Richard, Joseph, and Mimi, as long as you have people in the stack.
Yeah, no, Mimi's up first, and then Joseph, then Richard. So it reads the opposite for you. But yeah, Mimi, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for calling on me. Great town hall today. And Kevin, thanks for all that you're doing. And go Burner alumni, go our revolution. And my question was initially answered for how we can help on the ground. So I saw those two organizations you listed, and I'm going to get those out. And I was wondering how you would want to tell people that we're living in austerity because of the nearly 80 trillion since 1975 that has gone to the top 1%. We don't have Medicare for all. We don't have free university. We don't have universal child care. There's a lot of work to do. And then finally, I wanted to tell you and remind everyone that this coming week is the Make Polluters Pay Week of Action. And that's very easy to find, makepolluterspay.net. Groups can just put out a statement. We're having a rally here locally where I live, and I'm a big climate organizer as well. So thank you. That was my questions on austerity and the Make Polluters Pay Week of Action coming up starting tomorrow through the 30th. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Kevin?
Nope. I'll let for that timer thing to go. Okay. So absolutely. I completely agree with you. We are living on austerity, and we're to the point that it's frankly sad that elected officials aren't standing up and saying enough is enough, because we've seen government services continue to get cut and cut and cut over the years. How are we going to continue to provide services to people with these cuts? It's unsustainable, and people know it. In fact, I will say that more and more liberal Democrats, who people I wouldn't consider some progressives or Bernie crats or anything like that, are saying things like, Bernie was right. Like the 1% are getting richer. Life is getting tougher. The rich are buying up everything. They're jacking up the prices. This is not sustainable. Like more and more people are realizing that. And so completely agree with you. As far as the make polluters pay thing, completely agree as well. The corporations have flipped the script and said, oh, it's actually you, the consumer, that are the one that needs to recycle and do these things and so forth. But no, they're producing all these things that we don't need. Nobody asked for things to be made out of single-use plastic. People just want to be able to have some good yogurt or milk or whatever they're buying. They don't paying attention to the packaging. They're just assuming that government is making sure that it's safe. Well, it's not always safe, and neither is throwing it in. Neither is throwing it in the ground or burning it. We need to live in a more sustainable society. So I think the polluters should be paying, not the consumers, not the folks that don't actually make the choices about what these corporations are pulling out of the ground and into our air and into our waters.
Thank you, Donna Smith. You're the greatest, Donna. Just responding to a text from Donna. Joseph, you're up next, and then Richard. The stack is closed now, and I'm going to have a final question for Kevin. But Joseph, you're up now.
Can I unmute?
We can hear you, Joseph.
Okay, Kevin, Chicago Station was talking about the lady that in Hennepin County who would be charging the officer that shot Renee Good, and she's been resisting it. Are there any further developments on this? Do you know?
I do not know. I just know that the federal government is impeding the investigation from the state, and it's been very, very tough. Right. I just know I trust Attorney General Keith Ellison. He's the top cop in Minnesota. He's the top law enforcement elected official in Minnesota, and I trust him completely in getting the right things done.
He and Ilhan Omar are close associates of myself and of PDA.
Alan, could I ask a follow-up question to that?
Yeah.
Really quick. So, Kevin, one thing, and I don't know if this is accurate or not, so correct me if I'm wrong, but one thing that friends of mine from Minnesota that have traveled out there to document everything that's going on told me is that Minneapolis police are, of course, very frustrated with ICE as well, with the lies coming out of DHS, with literal police officers being racially profiled by DHS agents, because police seem to think that that they won't be targeted by these same oppression tactics that the federal government is utilizing. But is it accurate that the chief of Minneapolis police stated that the Minneapolis police locked the scene down because it was a crime scene on the shooting of Alex on the 24th? Despite federal agents trying to kick them out and trying to take control of the situation, Minneapolis PD is going to be more aggressive in defending this. Is that accurate, or am I incorrect?
That's what we're seeing here. We're seeing police going after ICE now.
Good.
Police and state patrol. They're arresting. They're pulling ICE over for things like jaywalking and any little petty crime they can. they are pushing back on ICE. Obviously, they can't stop them in every instance, but police are no one's happy about this. And then I will say that when I got to the scene, the state patrol seemed much more professional in being able to maintain a presence than ICE. ICE just seemed to agitate. I was in an area where I felt safe, but I left an area because I just saw that ICE was going to go after us and attack us for no reason, no provocation. They were just going to attack. And so I immediately left that area where a news reporter was attacked in that area. So, you may have seen that. But yes, no one is happy about this situation in Minneapolis, including our law enforcement, who tend to believe the lies of Trump. But I think that is slowly but surely changing.
That now is Richard is up now, and then I'll have actually two follow-ups. Go ahead, Richard.
How can we keep Minneapolis is safe? It was safe at one point, but Minneapolis is not safe no more. How can we make it safe again?
Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Richard. I personally think we just need ICE out of Minnesota. That's what we've been demanding for quite a while here. We just want ICE to leave. It started as a small group of folks demanding this, but as they sent thousands of people here, it's been very apparent they need to go. And I think that has to happen community by community. I think it starts, I would like to have it start in my neighborhood in Whittier, and expand out from here neighborhood by neighborhood, just like removing ICE, banning ICE completely from the city, from the county, from the state. But it's going to take, I don't know how that will happen exactly. I'm personally hoping we frustrate ICE to the point that they just leave, because they're like, Minnesotans are not going to give in. They're going to keep recording us no matter where we go. They're going to track us and watch us. So we are, and they aren't, ICE is not able to go to any restaurants. They can't even use the bathroom at the gas stations. People are kicking them out. So they know they're not welcome here, and they just need to leave. The sooner they leave, I think the sooner we will feel safe here in Minnesota.
Okay, we got about 5 more minutes. So Hartzell, you're up. You're gonna Michelle De La Rosa. We're closing Stack. Hopefully we'll get to you, but we're going to Hartzell, then 2 questions to me, and if there's time for Michelle. But that's it for Stack, folks. Hartzell, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll be super quick. Just curious on the city's response to the mayor. I know he's rhetorically this is a lot of strong words, but
this is one of my 2 questions. I'm curious about this because, of course, progressives, we had all supported an opponent of his. So yeah, but go ahead, Hartzell.
That's exactly where I was headed with that, my friend. So yes, Kevin, what do you say to that?
So there's a lot of mistrust of Fry because he said multiple times things like, "Oh, I've banned no-knock warrants," and he never actually did. And people still died. I will say that is one of the frustrations. People don't trust Fry. They don't trust him to really kick ICE out at the end of the day. I actually I think Walsh would be more likely to kick ICE out than Fry. But I think that Fry's frustration has grown. Personally, I think his frustration has grown. And he's, his rhetoric has gotten more firm against ICE. I just think that he will be a spokesperson for what people want in the city, and I think that's what he's doing a good job at. As far as his policies, that remains to be seen. I would like to see him support things like the unhoused community and so forth here, but he's not. We've seen him not work with the council to try to resolve things on issues that are important to progressives. So that lack of trust with him is really what I think is exemplified in this moment. I'm hoping he sees the facts like everyone else and is adjusting accordingly. But I do see the police are interacting with the public differently than they were 4 years ago. So there is some change. It's just very small and incremental, I guess will say about Fry. I don't know if that helps your question.
And I would suggest to anyone who's still on the call, hit up your municipalities. I mean, some of the best ways you can interact change when it comes to ICE is to call and email your city hall, your state rep, the county level. We've got our county level now. There's an ordinance to make sure that all these agents have to be identifiable. They have to no mask or anything like that. I've been really disappointed at large when it comes to mayors. So I think that's an untapped market that I think that we should really try to exploit. My mayor here in Kansas City has been garbage on this issue. So let that be if folks are trying to find ways to get involved, even from behind a screen. let your local city hall be a part of this ICE discussion as well.
Yeah, and I'd be remiss too if I don't also add that, out here in Los Angeles, Karen Bass hasn't been the worst of it, hasn't been the best of it either. She did send some message of solidarity to people in Minneapolis yesterday, but the real champions here were the people in Los Angeles, and I recommend my associate Bill Gallegos' recent articles for The Nation magazine about the popular uprising that pushed out ICE, well, pushed out the Marines and led to Los Angeles not being the flashpoint that it was, but it has not stopped the ICE raids. Those continue apace here in Southern California. They're tragic, and there's still a massive solidarity movement that we are, of course, fully supportive of. I did want to ask about the Somali community in particular, and I'm going to first maybe sound a little boastful, and then I'm going to embarrass myself. Ilhan Omar's office was one of the first offices I worked with closely when I came in as executive director. I came in September 2018, and we were part of a 3-organization coalition that worked with Ilhan Omar to draft the initial universal student debt cancellation bill that was in the House, and that had a huge impact. And it was fantastic working with Representative Omar. One of those organizations fell away. The other is the Debt Collective we still work with. We developed a great relationship with her. And even before that, I was privileged to be invited on the night of her being sworn into Congress to her community celebration event at a hotel in Virginia. And I went there, brought there by 2 friends. And unfortunately, Nancy Pelosi held Ilhan Omar and the whole Democratic caucus on the floor do a whole series of votes that night. And I don't think she ever made it over to the hotel. But what I walked into was the most beautiful collection of about 300 to 400 people from Minneapolis, from her district. Probably about 100 people from Washington, about 300 people from her district, and overwhelmingly from the Somali community. It was an unbelievably beautiful celebration, beautiful community. We all waited around because we thought, Rep. Omar would show up. Then it became apparent that she wouldn't. And you got to meet all these young people who were there in particular. Fantastic community of people. Now I'm going to embarrass myself. From a distance, I sort of understood or had a sense and never really looked into it. To this moment, haven't looked into it. So I'm asking you, Kevin, if you can clarify. My impression was that there was this huge crisis within Somalia, and a number of countries around the world took in refugees from Somalia in that circumstance, including the United States of America, and that there was an intentionality to the Twin Cities in Minneapolis accepting these refugees into the community. And I know that there were a few other places around the country where that's the case, one of them being in Maine. And now, of course, you might have heard ICE is going after Maine. Donald Trump, if people didn't hear his speech, and by all means, no one should have to listen to his god-awful speeches at Davos, even there, he made the most heinous racist comments about Somalians. I would have assumed that if this was sort of an intentionally situated refugee community, that their status within the United States would be more secure and therefore not be such an open target for Trump in his naked racism. And obviously, which is amplified by his hatred for Representative Omar, because again, of his bigotry and closed-mindedness and everything. But so why is that not the case, that when you have a community that is a refugee community that sort of goes through this kind of intentional placement through the federal government, one would think that the community would be more secure from the kind of threats from ICE that they're now experiencing. So if you can clarify.
I will bring up the Cubans in Florida who Trump is deporting, and then also the Hmong refugees and the Hmong immigrants who fought in the Vietnam War on behalf of the United States, right, who are also being attacked by ICE. So no, they're going to attack anyone and everyone. But he does really hate the Somali community, because the Somali community poses a threat because they believe in community. They believe in helping each other and supporting each other. And that's why so many have gotten elected to public office. But not just that, they've become doctors and nurses. They've gone to school.
The people I met in that hotel room were so fantastic. I can't, not enough superlatives I couldn't fill the space with the superlatives. Go ahead. Yeah.
So Somalis are very ambitious, very ambitious. There are other immigrant communities here that make up a higher percentage of the population, but the Somalis have been very ambitious in trying to, build power. And they don't just do it for themselves. The ones that get elected and continue to get elected don't just do it for themselves. They do it for the community, like Senator Omar Fattah and Senator Zainab Mohammed. Senator Zainab Mohammed goes on Facebook every day and Instagram lives every day, giving updates of what's happening in her district and how people can help each other. So I think that is what is a threat to Trump and a threat to our entire economic system. When people come together and challenge the systems, they see that as a threat. And so they see the Somalis as an organized threat. And so and of course they're Muslim, they're black, they're immigrants, all the things they hit all the check marks of things that.
But coming in as refugees, wouldn't they all have been universally granted card status? And so this shows that the racism just trumps everything. They're going to go after people regardless of their status, including even possibly if they're citizens.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once you start taking away people's rights that they have gained, by the way, like they'll take away more and they'll go after more as long as we let them. And we can't let them. We have to stand up. And that's what we're trying to do here in Minnesota. We're standing up for our immigrant neighbors. We're supporting each other and we're telling ICE to get the F out. And that I think we're going to, like I said,
I suppose a little bit more constructive than just browbeating myself for not knowing that in advance or needing that to be clarified. I wish this then would be highlighted more in the press, the back history to the Somalian community and how.
You want to know how they came to Minnesota? Do you want to know the story? Like why did
please
Somalis
do,
did not immediately come to Minnesota.
I imagine not. Yeah. It would seem a rough climate
This is
shift.
in fact, they didn't come to the Twin Cities. The largest so they went to DC and because a lot of immigrant communities go to DC because it's the capital, but a lot of them really like San Diego because it was like nice weather, California. But California is expensive to live. So some Somalis went around the country just looking for work and stuff. They heard about some Somalis this guy that got a job out in Wilmer, Minnesota at a meat packing plant. I don't know if it was chicken or beef. I don't know. There's a bunch of animals that get chopped up in Minnesota. So they heard about this place they could get a job and they're hiring tons of folks. They told all their families and so the word spread. Somalis don't communicate. They communicate orally and they communicate quickly. So word travels fast in the Somali community. And so a lot of folks came to Willmar, Minnesota, a small town. You look at that city today, it's one of the cities that ICE is targeting heavily because it's largely Somali. But a lot of Somalis, especially those that lived in Mogadishu, a little bit more cosmopolitan, they're not going to live in a small town like Willmar. Or even St. Cloud, which has another higher population than Twin Cities of Somalis. I think there's 2% of St. Cloud residents are Somali, 1.8 or so in the Twin Cities. So the word just spread, and the quality of life in Minnesota is so good that more Somalis are coming here every year. I have friends from San Diego, from Seattle, from Ohio that are, and even Senator Omar Fattah came from Virginia here because Minnesota, frankly, is a great place to raise a family. And Somalis, they want to raise families. And that's the future of Minnesota are our young children and the families. And that I believe the Somalis are going to have a huge impact on the future of Minnesota because they are so family oriented and they want to continue the tradition that we have here in Minnesota of living a good life.
Well, from Prince to Bob Dylan to everything that you and your cohorts are doing across these weeks, right now, you are a light to the world. You are a beacon to the world. The people who are showing solidarity with immigrants there and fighting ICE, standing up to ICE. And thank you from all of us at PDA from the bottom of our hearts for everything that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you, Kevin Chavez. Again, look him up if you just type in his name and put in county commissioner, all the information will come up. Find out about his campaign, and because I still don't know how to really spell the county. I have so many more other questions about Minnesota and what happened with the St. Paul rent control, but that's for another day. I'll maybe talk to you about it on the phone. I know you're in the other county, but we had supported that, and then I know that that was challenged in the courts and got messed up. But you guys do great progressive things. Obviously, you had that great series of statewide legislative package that came through, and then of course the tragedy that befell the two people who were shot. So much going on that it's a little rough times. George Floyd, of course, the beautiful response to the people of Minnesota then. and so much so right now that's ongoing. So solidarity and love, Minnesota, Minneapolis, Twin Cities. And thank you, Kevin Chavez, and thank you again to Representative Chuy Garcia, to a congressional candidate in Missouri's 4th District, Hartzell Gray. We had cameos from Hanya Jodat and, of course, Donna Smith and William Walter, and the great Mike Fox, who I am now going to hand over the reins of this Zoom because I am going to leave and prepare to go to New Orleans for this conference on artificial intelligence, and we'll be organizing with PDA to call for the regulation of artificial intelligence, which I think is a necessity, and also to support communities that are opposing the development of these data centers, which are going to have a really nefarious impact on their communities, and also to just slow this thing down because it's beyond being a massive bubble in the stock market, which is economically very suspicious. And it's something that's being completely organized by a set of oligarchs who are proving themselves to not have the best interests of people across the world or in the United States in mind, manner in which is harming young people and the psychology of all people with the interface on the internet and with AI in the hands of the same people who really messed that up over the past decade. This stuff needs to be slowed down. And I'll be going to this conference on that, and I'll report back on it next week. We should have a great town hall again next week. And this is, of course, every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Mountain, 1 p.m. Pacific. And that is our Progressive Democrats of America town hall for this week. And stay with us because we're going to family time. But I put a bow and a ribbon on it for you, Fox. So take it away, Mike Fox.